Welcome to Chiropractical, the podcast that helps you be better at what you do with new tools and new ideas. I'm Jon Kec, a chiropractor for the last 10 years, and your host on Chiropractical. Today, we're going to take a look at the women of chiropractic. Did you know that according to a recent 2020 survey by the ACA, approximately 33% of the profession is now made up of women, up from the mid-20s back in 2010. Also, trends are showing that more women are enrolling in chiropractic school today than men. What does that mean for our future? Will we be a 50-50 split between men and women sometime in the next 10 to 15 years? Joining me today, two distinguished ladies in the chiropractic field. First up, Dr. Brandi Childress, a practicing chiropractor in Atlanta, Georgia, and current president of the American Black Chiropractic Association. Also, Dr. Selina Sigafoose-Jackson, practicing in York, Pennsylvania, the 2024 ICA Chiropractor of the Year. The 2024 recently just stepped away from her position as ICA president and a founding member of the League of Chiropractic Women. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Childress first, tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey in chiropractic.
I have been in the chiropractic field for about 16 years. I initially attended Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama, and then I attended Sherman College in Spartanburg, South Carolina. After I left South Carolina, I settled back in Atlanta in Georgia. I'm originally from Columbus, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half south of Atlanta. I practice alongside a colleague who he and I both attended Sherman together, but we decided we didn't want to go back to our home cities, so we settled in Atlanta. I've got a full spine practice. I treat everyone from infants all the way up to seniors. We are doing PI, we're doing workers' comp, we're doing wellness, we're doing a little bit of everything.
Was there anybody specific that kind of, or anything specific that kind of got you focused on chiropractic as your path, or?
I was an athlete a little bit. I played a little bit of soccer.
Okay.
I ran a little bit of track. And I think that was one of the things that kind of got me into it, understanding how chiropractors can, help athletes in their bodies. So that was one of the biggest things that turned me on to how I could benefit as an athlete from chiropractic. And also, I did get introduced to it by Mr. Michael Harris. So anybody who checks this out and they're familiar, Michael Harris is a recruiter. He used to be recruiting for Sherman, but now he works at Life here in Atlanta. So he's one of the other guys that were pivotal with introducing me to the world of chiropractic as well.
And Dr. Sigafoose-Jackson, same thing. Tell us a little about what got you into the profession and your time in practice so far.
Well, it's the old, did chiropractic choose me or did I choose chiropractic? And I think that answered both.
Okay.
Having my dad being, we'll say, a legend in his own time of chiropractic. But he used to always say, you can fool a lot of people, but you can't fool your kids. And so all 6 of us kids became a chiropractor. And I think for me, I'm brutally honest, this is no secret. I went to chiropractic school to find a husband. I needed to make sure that I married somebody that was in line with my way of thinking, that I wasn't going to have to buck my decisions and have to defend myself. So I met my husband on day 1 and I thought, well, I'm here. I may as well be a chiropractor. So I became a chiropractor. We ended up practicing in Florida initially and would still be there to this day. So the decision for us to move to Pennsylvania was God's decision. Like, we heard both of us separately, loud and clear, we needed to leave Florida. So in October of 91, we opened our practice together and the doors have been blown wide open since. In about 17 years ago, I had a miscarriage and it just put me on this journey and I realized something's going on here. And I kept praying that I needed either a baby or a project. Well, God didn't bring me one. He brought me 2 projects. So I became one of the founders of the LCW, League of Chiropractic Women. And then shortly thereafter, I moved into a leadership role in ICA. And so practice full time in York, Pennsylvania. I have 2 daughters. One daughter just graduated from chiropractic school. And we're trucking.
I'm going to start with, I think, our biggest question of the day. You both have a wealth of experience. What's the biggest challenge you personally are facing, but also women in general throughout the chiropractic field right now?
I'll get started with this one. I'm pretty sure Dr. Selina is going to give us a whole bunch of good stuff right behind this. The biggest challenge, I'm not sure if I can pinpoint just one, but coming from a female perspective with women, I think females have a tough time balancing the work-life balance with it.
Sure.
Females carry the babies. As Dr. Selina said, she went to chiropractic school to find a husband, and then she was looking for the project, and she got two. But it's difficult to figure out for some women how to engage in the motherhood space as far as, how long am I going to stay in the office while I'm pregnant? Am I going to try to be here all the way up through month 9? Am I going to get someone in to assist me and to take over, with my adjustments? What does that look like? Who is that's going to come in to care for my patients? And then once you have the baby, the question becomes, how long am I going to stay out with my baby? Am I going to bring my baby into the office? Is my office a space that's conducive enough to have the baby here and to be able to function and operate and to care for my patients the way that I need to? So there's so many questions around that aspect of things for females of like, how do we operate and maneuver and make sure that our office and our practice is still functioning well while being a mom, while being a wife, while being nurturing, while being supporting. And I think that's one of the major challenges, especially, most females, either you will find your husband while you're in chiropractic school or you'll find them right after. So we're like already in the space of having our children while there or having our children soon after we graduate. And I think as far as, men versus women, that's one of the biggest challenges that women face because men will oftentimes leave those duties for women and women are forced with figuring out how to make it work while men go ahead and, do whatever they feel like they need to do on the practice side. And the women and the children sometimes often kind of get left behind on the thoughts of how to operate and maneuver in practice. So for me, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for women right now, navigating the work-life balance, being a mother, being a wife, and also being successful in practice.
That is the biggest challenge. You're right. But it's interesting that I did not perceive that as a challenge. And I think that is because I made the choice to go and find a husband that was in chiropractic that wouldn't even have been a question. We both knew what those answers would be long before we were married 8 years before we had children. So, and in practice for 6 years in Pennsylvania. So, but that is massive. And for me, it was kind of like innately, well, of course, that's my job. There's not a challenge for me. But you know what was the biggest challenge for me as a woman? Was to not be a man. Could be in a highly huge world where when I graduated in 1989, it was all men. My mentor, my person I looked up to was my father. The person I followed behind was my husband, right? My older brother. I did have my sister, Delina, who was 8 years older than me. But how in the world do I live in a world where it's all men, but yet I'm not a man and I don't talk to patients and I don't adjust and I don't give the same advice as a man? But I had to live under the umbrella of men. And it took me a long time to realize I'm not you. I don't adjust like you and don't. And it brought our marriage to the brink many of times where I would have to say to him, it is this practice or it is this marriage, because I'm not going to duplicate what you do. So don't stand there in front of people and give me your whistle or your eye because you don't want me to do it my way. And so that, I think, for me as a woman married to a chiropractor, and I think even women that aren't married to chiropractors, the men are the leaders. That's honestly, this isn't a plug for the League of Chiropractic Women, but that's why it began, because we needed women mentoring women, because all we had was men mentoring women, telling women, to your point, Brandi, go home, just stay home. Don't leave practice, just stay home and have your children. What? No, there is a way, and we need to let the women decide how that way is. And the challenge was men were dictating how it should be.
So it sounds like the biggest thing was kind of finding your path, right? And both your path through how to set up your practice, but also your path how to navigate life and balance that practice. Anything that you can kind of point back to that was kind of a pivotal point for either of you in finding that true path forward? Like Dr. Childress, it sounded like you've struggled with kind of balancing that being a mom versus being a professional piece. Was there something that you, like, light bulb moment for you that you were just like, this is my path? Or was there a person, maybe a mentor like Dr. Sigafoose-Jackson referenced that helped you understand that?
So actually, I don't have children, although I'm speaking on behalf
Oh.
of women who do have children, because I do understand the challenges. We speak about it quite
Sure.
often. But so unlike Dr. Selina, I didn't come through in the 80s. I actually came out in the 2000s. So my experience was a little bit different. And I was, fortunate in the space to have people like Dr. Selina who did decide that the League of Chiropractic Women was important. We now have the women chiropractors. So I was able to see female and women leaders during my time in school in the 2000s. And that's part of what has changed a bit. I still feel like I'm trying to find the balance. Having the practice, also serving as the president of the ABCA. I'm navigating it. I have the path, but there's still ups and downs and times where I have to say yes and times where I have to say no. I don't think that I've perfected it, but I think that I've got a good space to where I can navigate and move, and still be effective and efficient. But so yeah, I think that my perspective is just a little bit different because yes, initially, as Dr. Selina mentioned, there were mostly men that we had, and they were the leaders and they were the bosses. Fortunately, again, I've seen a lot of women in leadership. I saw Dr. Selina as serving as president of the ICA. Prior to me serving as the president of the ABCA, we had Dr. Michaela Edwards, and I know some people are familiar with Dr. Edwards, but during my time for the ABCA, with Dr. Edwards' tenure, we were able to have our all first female board for the history of our association, and we are
Awesome.
approaching 44. And so having a female president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, parliamentarian, that was amazing because we never had it. And, now we still have a very high female presence in our leadership, but we still have the guys there. So we have a male back. The ACA also had Dr. Michelle Myers serving as president there. So I have had, a few female role models and mentors to kind of see how they've done it and see how they're doing it to be able to navigate my pathway a little bit better.
Dr. Sigafoose-Jackson, kind of the same thing. You've done it from the other side, right? You've been that mentor or helped people find those mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have somebody that kind of pointed you into that path, or can you maybe have a specific doctor you really helped on that path?
I think that a lot of trial and error brings you to that path. A lot of this doesn't work. This isn't working. I have a long career ahead of me. I can't feel this angst for my whole career. I have to find a way. So a lot of soul searching, a lot of praying, a lot of inward looking and upward looking and prayer and listening, listening prayer. It's one thing to do the speaking. It's another thing to be quiet and hear and again, innately know that voice wasn't my desires. That voice was real. That voice is saying, Selina, you can't work 5 days a week. Selina, you can't be Kevin. Selina, and just know that it wasn't from a space of desire. It was a space of absolute need. And just finally saying, it took me, and I did this probably in 2010, 2013, somewhere in that range. One day I realized, wait a minute, I am not Sigafoose's daughter, and I am not Kevin Jackson's wife. I am Selina Sigafoose-Jackson. Or how about I'm just Selina, because all of those names attached to someone else. And so I'm just Selina. And it was a day where I realized I'll be a son of a, I'm done. I'm done. And it's time to make a change. And it wasn't a give up. I give up. It was my head's down and I'm moving forward. Yeah.
Let's take a look at the future of chiropractic, the recent past and where that may be taking us for the future, I guess I should say. I think it was a 2020, and correct me if either of you know this and I'm wrong. ACA survey that said it's 33% of the profession are women now, up from 25.5% or so in 2010. I think if not very recently, within the last 4 to 5 years, enrollment is now more women than men in chiropractic schools. So that number is only going to keep climbing. Where do you kind of see women taking the profession and their ever growing larger percentage of the practicing doctors in this country? Where are we going from here?
Well, I think, Gandhi said, if the world is to be changed, it'll be by women. So on one hand, we carry, and that's one of the biggest differences between me and my husband, we carry so much compassion and empathy that just innately comes through us, whether we have children or not. It's in our DNA to just live and breathe differently. So I do believe it's women who will keep chiropractic alive out of love, hope, and compassion. I think that we have that just pours through us. But I will say that I have a concern with that, because if we have over 50% of the women as chiropractors, and as Brandi said so eloquently, these women cannot be 100% in practice. How do we, my concern is that, yes, we have 50% of the women, but can those 50% of the women take the lion's share of 50% that the profession needs? So it will take, let's say in my practice, it would take 2 or 3 women to do the job of what my husband can as far as seeing the volume. And that is not to down women. I can't see the volume that my husband sees. And we need more chiropractors in this profession. And if the more chiropractors that are coming in are women are going to we're going to have to recruit more chiropractors, because we are the ones that are going to leave the practice and have our babies and maybe go part-time and shift and change or take leadership roles, because the world clearly needs us women to navigate in a different way than just a bull in a china shop.
It's interesting to just kind of go on with Dr. Sigafoose-Jackson's point here. Not only do women have this aspect of where we have to, get out to take care of our children and our family, we also have to consider the wear and tear on our bodies. Women are naturally their bones have less mass and their muscles have less mass than a man. That's just natural. That's just how we're anatomically made. So if you are in a high volume practice and you are adjusting and you're doing a lot of side posture and you're doing a lot of shoulder work and you do this for years, it's going to put wear and tear on your body. So that might cut back on some of the time that you're actually able to do it. And that might be another factor that will contribute to us needing to have more females and more women to be able to treat our population, to treat our patients, because so much wear and tear after a certain point, you're not going to be able to do it. You're just physically not going to be able to do it at all. So I think it is definitely important that we continue to push to help recruit to get more young women as well as men. I see this across healthcare and not just in chiropractic. I often mentor and train students who are looking to go to nursing school, dental school, respiratory therapy school. And I see the same thing happening across the board, where we have females that are basically investing in these healthcare fields. But there's going to be a need for a balance. Even if we take over and we're more 50, 60, 70%, men are they're going to be needed. And sometimes it is for the heavy lifting. People look at it and say, wow, that's stereotypical. Well, I may not want to put a 50-pound box or whatnot here, so I might need a man for that aspect. So we do need the balance of male and female energy to be able to make it work.
One question, you kind of mentioned other medical professions. Dr. Selina, you kind of mentioned trying to realizing that you're not, your husband, or you're not anyone else, man, woman, anybody else in your path through your career. As the percentage of women in chiropractic continues to grow, and a lot of integration, I think, is starting to happen, conversationally at least, right? We're talking to other chiropractors more, we're talking to other physical therapists, other medical professionals more. Do you see any challenges in some of that interplay between the professions, still potentially mostly male, coming back to an ever-growing percentage of female chiropractors? Are there barriers that you'll have to navigate your way through with those other doctors who maybe don't have the changes happening like we do?
I do not see an issue whatsoever being a female dealing with other professionals. Not at all. Um, and part of it could be that I don't allow it to be. I don't have that, you know, it's kind of like, and I don't say this for any other reason, but years ago, we used to have a couple of women that came into the practice, or we lots of times have people come and shadow our practice. And I'm not on social media, so they can't circle back to talk to me unless they have my cell number. So they usually circle back to my husband, and he'll say, well, why didn't you talk to Dr. Selina about that? And they're like, well, I don't think she likes me, or I'm afraid. And I'm like, what? You've got to be kidding me. But I think what it is that I come from a space of, take me as I am. This is it. You don't like it. Too bad. I'm moving forward. But I want to say, just in that interprofessional relationship, man or woman, I'm embarrassed, or maybe I should be proud, one of these. But I have discovered Chat GPT. And if I have somebody come back at us, a pediatrician negatively, a social worker, or somebody that manages a patient's case, like for a workers' comp or PI, and they're negative that a chiropractor is working with them. Oh, I go to Chat GPT. I say, write me a letter that says this, 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 and this, and it will fly out a letter that is so eloquent, because if I say it my way, there's going to be some F-bombs flying. But it'll write out a letter, and I can just like, here you go. So it keeps my tone, and it says, that's not appropriate. These are the facts, because I say, give me facts. And it is so powerful. So powerful. So if you don't use Chat GPT and you feel offended by me, then, come at me. That's all I can say is let's be open, and I don't ever have a problem in that realm just because I'm a woman.
Dr. Childress, anything to add there?
I don't find that I have any difficulty dealing with male practitioners or providers outside of our profession. I actually have seen, at least in the past few years, where I do have patients that come in and they will tell me, this doctor said to come see you, or this doctor said to come see you. So despite what I heard quite often when I was in chiropractic school of, the medical side doesn't like us, they just that, and the third, I'm seeing a little bit more of co-management. And I think that's what it should be, male or female, because it's all the same human body. And we're all trying to make sure that it stays, closer to the healthy side versus the unhealthy side. So if we're working on the same person, it's going to be good to communicate what we're doing to make sure we're all cohesive with what we're doing to this person. So yeah, no, I don't really find that these days. I think that we have made strides to the point where we can look past male versus female and be able to work together effectively.
Anything else challenge-wise that you see kind of coming for women in the profession the next, 5, 10, 15 years even, again, as that percentage of women continues to grow upward?
I think that's the challenge, is being able to say, this is me, this is how I want me to look, this is what I want my life to look like, and it's not going to necessarily match someone else's, and be okay. I don't say we sit back on our laurels and say, oh, I'm a woman and I can't. What I'm saying is that I don't want to work Saturday mornings, or I don't want to do side posture. That is maybe how your other chiropractor did it, but I don't do it that way. I don't do side posture. I don't do anteriors. This is how it is. And so I would tell my 22-year-old self, it is okay. Build you. Don't build what somebody else has put inside your head.
Sure.
And then the challenges that I see in the future is exactly as I said, if we have so many women in chiropractic, these women are going to have to, like Brandi said, we're going to need either more women or more chiropractors, and people to say, like, okay, I practice, because we are now, like, it's beautiful that you practice with somebody, Brandi, that you're not married to that person, I'm thinking.
Yes.
And so we're going to have to need, I think women should, hopefully they don't have the ego, and group together and practice more in group practices so that they can all there's a couple of examples that I know of women that do that, and it's gorgeous. So the challenge is to be able to say, I can do this with other women and not try to charge forward and do it on their own.
So to Dr. Selina's point, I've been blessed. We made the decision when we were in school that, he and I were going to practice together. We're not married, as you mentioned, Dr. Selina. We're very good friends. We're actually like brother and sister. He and I are in brother and sister, or I guess you could say our sorority and fraternity, or brother sister sorority fraternity. And that's how he and I initially connected. And so I am very glad that we made the decision to practice together for several different reasons. And one of the things that I see a lot of the young female chiropractors dealing with right now is how to handle inappropriate situations with their male patients. And I think that would be a challenge like forever. It's a very intimate profession. If you're an attractive woman, or even if you're not, a man is a man, a guy is a guy, testosterone is everywhere. So you'll have challenges there just because of how intimate things are with what we do. And so there are females that do practice by themselves, and they have to figure out, how do I navigate unwanted advances from my male patients? And so they may come to their female mentors and say, hey, this is something that I'm dealing with. How did you deal with this? And so me, as someone who practices with someone else, that's been a blessing for us to try to combat that. So by us practicing together, being in our space, we can act as buffers for things like that, and kind of help each other out whenever we do encounter situations where there's things that are inappropriate from patients, or even from other people that may be of the opposite sex. And so that is a plus or a perk from being able to have a male and female practice like that.
Before we kind of wrap up, I know you're both very heavily involved in a number of organizations, some very focused on women in the profession, others focused on the profession. Dr. Selina, the League of Chiropractic Women, what do y'all do? Why should women be excited to get signed up?
Well, the League of Chiropractic Women, like I said, it was initially made to mentor women in chiropractic because they didn't have the mentor. But we very quickly realized that it's all women in chiropractic. I have 2 employees that have been with me for 35 years. They sometimes need the support of fellow women in chiropractic. Both of these employees, my one had both of her children at home, breastfed, co-slept, did a lot of things that we chiropractors choose to do because of the influence. And then, it's open to administrators. It's open to all kinds of women because chiropractic is a way of life. And these women that dive in with us practitioners need the support as well. So the League of Chiropractic Women has online programs. We have face-to-face programs to just really do exactly kind of have these conversations like we're having right now. And then the International Chiropractors Association, oldest association in our profession, next year is 100 years. And our mission is to protect and promote chiropractic throughout the world. And in saying goodbye to my presidency recently, I'm proud to say that, we've really had a big push for that. Brazil, a lot of countries that chiropractic isn't regulated is really seeing the pinch. But I will tell you that I went and spoke in Brazil in November, and the young women that were there was off the charts. Off the chart.
Cool.
It was wild to see. So I believe that, we can't complain if we aren't willing to step up and protect our own profession. So
on the ICA side, any big party plans for the 100 year? Anything you can discuss?
Yes, we are going to be at Palmer in September, right around the anniversary of chiropractic since BJ founded the ICA. We're going back to the Fountainhead to celebrate in September of 2026. Yes.
Awesome. I'll look for my invitation.
Yes, of course.
Dr. Childress, same thing with the ABCA, or if there's another association that you think is something we should talk about today. What are y'all doing for women in the field?
So the ABCA is the American Black Chiropractic Association. And our primary mission is to integrate and improve outcomes for persons of color entering the profession. That's male, that's female. One misconception people think is that, it's only for Black people, but persons of color, is all encompassing. Everybody has color to it. So we're open for everyone. Anybody can join our association. The primary mission with improving incomes was started a long time ago by our founder, Dr. Bobby Westbrooks, back at Logan University in St. Louis. And it was just because there was a lack of support for people of color in the beginning. What I will say is that, over time, things have greatly improved as far as connections and communications for persons of color who are in our career field. And I think that the ABCA has a role in helping to guide and mentor people of color specifically, as well as women and men. And this year, we're kicking off our national convention this summer at Parker University. And with the changes of administration, it has been interesting this year. Some of the challenges that I have faced in the wake of changes with DEI. I am appreciative of all associations, ICA, ACA, FCLB. You mentioned are there others that we should talk about here? Absolutely. We should talk about all of our associations that have
Sure.
missions to make what we do better and to keep our profession going and making it great. So like Dr. Selina said, you got to figure out and find what your niche is. What are you good at? What is your thing? And perfect your thing. So as long as we are able to show these are the things that are out there, I feel like, I'm doing my job, or we're doing our job by making things available to help improve the outcomes of everybody, not just persons of color, but everybody who's in our profession. So I've had a great time, leading the ABCA. I'm like Dr. Selina, I'm on my way out. This is not my last year. I still have another year, but it has been fantastic working with the ABCA over the past 16 years as a student and transitioning over to a doctor. I've met so many amazing leaders across our profession by serving the ABCA. And I feel like this is just the beginning. I can't wait to see, what is in store for the future and how I'll be able to interact with other leaders in our profession.
Well, thank you for the insight on all the organizations. We'll make sure we get links to everybody down in the show notes. That way they can find any information on anything and everything. Because I think, like you both kind of said, get involved, right? Get involved, be willing to stand up and say something. Nothing's going to change unless you do. And if you don't have the resources to know who can support you to say things and get involved, you don't know where to start. So we'll definitely get that all linked as well. But thank you both so very much again for the time today, for the perspective. Much appreciated. And I really enjoyed the conversation.
One more shout out.
Of course. Go for it.
NCMIC, NCMIC has unbelievably totally flipped me 180 in its unreal caring for the chiropractic profession as a whole. I grew up not knowing exactly what NCMIC was about. And in the past 4 years, the relationships that I've built with NCMIC and all of your leaders and what you're willing to do and ask for nothing in return is off the charts amazing. So I could not go on without saying thank you guys so much for all that you're doing. It's amazing.
Thank you. Very, very much appreciate that. We'd love to be as involved as we possibly can. So keep the requests and the conversations coming. We're here to help in any and all ways we possibly can. So, but thank you very much for the kind words. And I'll make sure they see that directly from you, but I'll tell them as well.
Thank you.
Of course.
I just co-signed Dr. Selina, and I'd say thank you to NCMIC. You guys are amazing. Your motto of we take care of our own, I will know that until I die, because you guys truly live up to that. And we appreciate you from all of our associations, all the leaders. We appreciate NCMIC for everything that you guys do. Thank you for the support of the chiropractic profession. We look forward to continuing to work with you guys like this. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
well,
thank you.
Thank you as well. That is extremely humbling. I just want to say that was not planned. I had no idea anything was coming. So
Nope.
I appreciate the kind words so very much. And thank you again, ladies, for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you so much.
One more time, a big thank you to our guests today, Dr. Brandi Childress and Dr. Selina Sigafoose-Jackson. As mentioned, links to all the organizations we discussed, the League of Chiropractic Women, the ICA, the ABCA, as well as other organizations will be in the show notes below. And as always, feel free to watch us on YouTube. If you have any questions for us, our guests, or any suggestions for our next topic, please reach out at askncmic@ncmic.com. I'm Jon Kec. Thanks for joining Chiropractical, and we'll see you next time.